Well, tell me, mama, what's going on? Tell me, darling, what's going on?
All right. Welcome back, everybody. The Bacon and Egg Show, episode number 57, July 17th, 2021. Jay, what is going on?
What's up, man? Not a lot. Another good week around these parts. We're going to hit it heavy and hit it often today with some recruiting news in multiple sports on the 40 acres. But yeah, no, I had a good week. How about you, man? What's happening?
Yeah, man, pretty good week. Can't complain, man. It's been action-packed. We've had a lot going on. We had Austin FC friendlies. We've had action on the 40 acres. A lot's been happening. So let's get right into it. We'll I know this is kind of an afternoon edition here, but we'll jump off with the cup of coffee. And I just wanted to. This is going to lead into kind of where we're going to start the show today. But I want to come clean and admit that I was wrong about something. And our viewers who have dedicated their time and energy to watching the show will remember after the Running Horns, exit from the NCAA tournament, we discussed on this show, and I think I may have said something about this was the worst loss. That Texas loss to Abilene Christian is one of the worst losses in school history. Definitely for the basketball program. Like, could you find a more humiliating and worse way to exit the tournament? I stand corrected. I completely misjudged that, and I want to come clean. And now my perspective is I think there was no greater win for the Texas basketball program than losing to Abilene Christian in the first round of the NCAA tournament, because what Chris Beard has been doing and what this program has done since he's taken over is nothing short of amazing. And without that Abilene Christian loss, we would not be talking about what we're about to talk about here. And I know we were joking about it in the text message or with Longhorn Insider Mike Holland about, like, the Abilene Christian thing. Like, I've seen it on Twitter. Like, this is that was unintentionally one of the greatest things to happen to this program, right?
Yeah, hands down. I mean, when you look at it and then the one shining moment video, you see Shaka with that exasperated look on his face, like, I can't, like, that's going to be his legacy for me at this school, is that moment right there. But even though in that moment of pain, seeing that and being reminded of that first round exit, you're exactly right. Chris Beard is that dude in terms of getting guys, bringing guys to campus. It's impressive what he's done, and I'm really happy to be able to talk about some of this because it's like this roster has gone from, we were just sitting here talking about, when's the NBA draft deadline, and are these guys coming back, and blah,
right,
blah, blah. And then it turns out that none of that really mattered because of what's happened since the players that have been brought on campus since then.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that in, kind of what our feelings were earlier on. And I think, we'll go back and watch the game tape about what we discussed on here. But, like, I feel like our kind of general, correct me here, Jay, if I'm wrong on this, but, like, I feel like our kind of general sentiment after Shaka Smart was, he wasn't let go. He took the Marquette job. Our kind of general sentiment was like, all right, what's this roster going to look like? We've got guys that could potentially go and be first round picks in the NBA. We've got, maybe there's some guys that were Shaka guys that wouldn't return. They might look to transfer. The recruiting aspect of things, there was kind of a feeling of, what is this roster even going to look like next season? And we knew Chris Beard recruited well at Tech, and, there was just, I don't know. I think we kind of had this feeling of like, let's kind of see how this plays out. How is he going to build this roster? How is he going to keep guys on campus that are already on the team? Who's he going to find in the transfer portal? How's he going to do on the recruiting trail? and it's exceeded every single one of my expectations for what I've had for him coming in. And obviously they haven't played a game yet. And those expectations, we'll get to that, will be when we actually have a season to talk about, will be different. But I think what he's done since he arrived on campus is just incredible, given how we kind of felt about the transition. You know, this wasn't like it's Calipari coming in and he's just going to clean up. Like, I think some of our doubts have been completely obliterated, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a couple of the players that have agreed to join up with him here in Austin, two of them today within the span of 5 minutes of each other, basically. It's just really impressive to what he's doing. So do you want to jump into that now?
Let's jump right into it, man. Let's jump right into it. It's amazing. I'm tickled that we are in mid-July talking about the Texas basketball program with this type of enthusiasm. Like, have we ever had this here? I guess,
no, man.
We're a basketball school now, so we need to get used to this, I guess. But like,
no kidding.
Yeah, let's get right into it. Let's talk about what happened today. As we discussed last week, Marcus Carr, number 1 rated transfer player that was in the portal, he's committed. He's coming to Texas. It was one thing that we discussed. Like, he was visiting, and you do everything that you can do to keep him from taking those visits to Louisville and Kentucky and Kansas and whoever else that he was, looking at. And it sounds like they pulled that off. That Beard basically secured that commitment with him visiting Austin. Jay, what do you know about Marcus Carr? I mean, I know we didn't get into a ton of detail about him besides talking about, what kind of, just kind of his general ranking and how big of a commitment this would be. But what do you know about Marcus Carr?
Well, he's a bucket getter. Like, when you're talking about replacing some of that scoring that left the team last year, whether it was through a transfer or whether these guys have graduated out and are now professionals, he's immediately, like, he's your bucket getter. He's going to average 20 points a game for Chris Beard. Like, he's an all-around player, though. He's not just a bucket getter. He'll still get you a couple of boards. He's going to get 5 assists a game. Like, he's an all-around player, and it's just. I told you last week that I would be disappointed if this didn't happen at this point with everything that we've been hearing, with as much that was on Chris Beard's side. I told you I'd be disappointed. I felt strongly that this would happen, and until you hear it from the player, though, like, it's hard to not sort of think that he's going to pull out,
sure.
Despite all the good stuff,
right?
Because Texas basketball, I mean, while there's been obviously there's been some really nice players, NBA players that have come through here lately, you don't always think of, okay, this is the number 1 ranked guy coming out of here. He's going to go to Texas. Out of nowhere, no connections to the university, no family's been here, no nothing like that. And then you get a guy like Marcus Carr that was easily the best player in the transfer portal, and Chris Beard got him. So, I mean, an all-around player, but he's a bucket getter. He's going to score. He knows how to score the basketball. And I don't know, it's hard to, I don't know, man. It's different, right? I guess that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, we're a basketball school now, right? I guess so. We're talking about this in July, so I don't know, man. There's a sense of excitement around this commitment.
Yeah, it's amazing as we put this show together, and you look at what our notes and everything that we've got planned out for this show. As far as I know, we're not talking Texas football once, and Big 12 media days are happening this week. I think that says. I can't think of anything else that sums up what Chris Beard has done since getting to campus. Here we are in July talking Texas basketball, and we're going to talk a lot of Texas basketball. I just, on the Marcus Carr thing, like, this isn't a guy that was putting up these kind of numbers at, Florida Southwest, brothers of the poor
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
like he was doing this in the Big Ten,
Yeah. He's
which
a Big Ten player, right?
which according whoever you talk with last season, I mean, was up there with the Big 12 in terms of one of the best leagues in the country and the number of teams that they put in the tournament and all those things. So to have to put up those kind of numbers and again, like it feels different. You nailed it. But I think in the context of it, like if this was the only player that Chris Beard got in the transfer portal this season, maybe we have a different perception. I think with everything, like the whole picture here, um, I mean, he's got 3 out of the top 5 players in the transfer portal this offseason. So I think you bundle that up and you go, like, that's incredible. What is it? 3 out of the top 5 and 6 out of the top 31 players in the transfer portal.
Yeah. Like the questions about roster construction went from, we don't know what to expect. It went from what guys from Texas Tech are going to follow him,
right,
to which one did. But it went from that to, so he's actually in a conversation for some of these national guys, like these guys that have offers and interests all over the country. He's not just bringing guys from Lubbock with him and maybe picking up a couple. No, these are the best. These are some of the best players in the country, and he got them all.
It's to quote Dan Levitard.
Yeah, it's a quote
That classic clip. He got them all.
Yeah,
discounted.
Purple drink. Yeah, that one. But he's got. I mean, and it's like the list of players.
And that's it.
Like
yeah.
Looking at right now this is probably, it's an all-star team.
It really is.
It's like a college all-star team.
It really is. And that's what these are. Again, it's not small programs. Timmy Allen, Utah, good program. Trey Mitchell, UMass, another program that's had some good, success over the years. Christian Bishop, Dylan Disu coming from Vanderbilt, the leading rebounder in the SEC. Devin Askew, a 5-star recruit that things just didn't take off at Kentucky for him. Like, you mix that in already with the guys that are coming back. Like, and this was a team that was really good during the regular season, was really good. And it's hard not to get excited. And it's hard not to think, I know, another, on our group text with Mike, it's this kind of like, kind of talked about the expectations. Like, when have Texas fans ever held unrealistic expectations,
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
right.
But,
yeah, nothing
but
to
honestly,
worry about there.
Yeah. I mean, sure, people won't get upset if this team doesn't win the national championship this year. But like, honestly, Mike follows this a lot closer than I do in terms of like the national scene. Like he's, when Marcus Carr was even mentioned, Mike was on top of it. Like, if we get this guy, like, throw everything else out the window in terms of what Beard's already built. Like, at minimum, this is a top 5 team, right? Minimum. Like, is that a fair?
Like, no, I think that's the absolute minimum with the way
this is an Elite 8 team.
Oh, easily. It has to be. Like, I mean,
right.
It's almost like, I mean, and we just talked about Texas fans having setting expectations too high sometimes, so I'm about to do that. You look at this roster from top to bottom. Now, Courtney Ramey is probably not going to start. Like, that's the thing. He might not start.
Not only is Ramey probably not going to start, but where in the rotation is he? Is Ramey even your 6th man?
That'd be just imagine Ramey coming off the bench, being the first guy off, and just being that instant energy and playing Ramey ball.
But like, you look at this, but where does Ramey fit, like, in that rotation? To say that he's going to be the first guy off the bench almost feels like a stretch to me.
Well, and I mean, because
this will all shake out, but still,
it will. But how many point guards do you have? How many 2 guards do you have? You could play. Ramey could play pretty much anything from 1 to 3.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, it's like some of these guys, like Devin Askew, who's the you mentioned earlier, that's the former 5-star guy that
Right.
played at Kentucky and just didn't get a lot of run, wasn't a fit, just didn't mesh. And then,
He was
okay,
a year
he's, you
early
know,
too, right? Wasn't he a guy that was super young for his class? And honestly, it was like
yeah,
he's probably a
yeah,
year behind his peers.
yeah, and it just didn't work out at Kentucky. And well, that's what one man's trash is another man's treasure, because he's still viewed as an elite prospect in the
Right.
game. And now he's going to be, unless they're playing 2 point guards, he's probably not. I mean, he's not going to come in and start obviously right away. So he's going to be one of those guys that will be coming in on the rotational guys. And that's the guy that has had the worst collegiate career up to this point. Like, and he
But
only,
it's such a
he
small
only
sample
averaged like,
size. That's the
yeah,
thing with him.
exactly. And
Right.
it's like a 6 points a game or whatever. Didn't get a ton of run, but like you said, it's in that stage where he was still a year early in developing. But when you look at, Trey Mitchell, 19 points a game. Bishop averaged 11 points a game at Creighton. Dylan Disu was 15 points a game at Vanderbilt. That's a lot of buckets. That's a lot of, there's going to have to be, this basketball isn't going to be spread around as equally as these point totals on a sheet, right? So, Carr immediately becomes your number one. Like, Carr is that dude for me. And then everybody else can just fill in around that. With what Disu and Bishop bring as bigs, those guys are just it's gonna up and down the floor, play good defense, rebound the basketball, and run. And Chris Beard, these guys are gonna run. They're gonna play fast. They're gonna play with tempo. He does bring in one of the concerns. Maybe it was with the motion offense. How do you, is that something that these players will benefit from? And my take on that was, when you have players of this caliber, that if somebody's always moving and any one of these players is open, I would want them to take the shot. And that's when you know that your roster is as stacked as it is. And that's why Texas is at minimum a top 5 team. And probably, if you said Texas is a top 3 roster in the country right now, I don't know, you wouldn't get too many arguments.
Sure. And that's why I say, like, given what this roster is at this point and what it's going to be for for the season, like, saying anything short of an Elite 8, I think is fair. Like, or I think if this team doesn't make an Elite 8, just the way that it's built, the way that we've seen Chris Beard coach, I think if this team does not make the Elite 8, then yeah, sure, that's a disappointment with the talent that he's amassed here. But as we talked about before, you get to the Elite 8, who knows how things shake out, and same thing once you get to a Final Four. And just like we talked about with Omaha, like, when you get into these single game scenarios and tournament situations, shit happens. But this is a team that should be in a regional final.
Yeah, they should. I mean,
and I think that's already a fair expectation for this.
Yeah, and that's why it's like you said, once you get to that point, it's all
a bounce here, a bounce there.
Playing,
who knows?
The teams are all so good at that point. They're either that talented or they're playing better than anybody else in the country at that point. And are, like when a George Mason makes a Final Four run, and it's like that was the team that they were just, everything was clicking and everything that they were doing was going right. Every bounce was going their way. But for the most part, when you get to that level, it's a coin flip most of the time. These are great teams. So
it is, but I mean, honestly, we look back at this past tournament, Baylor and Gonzaga, from the start of the season all the way through. And are we talking about, despite everything else, from wire to wire, the 2 most talented teams in the country were there at the end? Is this the type of talent and roster that we're talking about with this team? To where this is one of those things when the season, because we've seen all the Twitter and all the social media like responses today to all this action with Marcus Carr. We're going to get to the Arterio Morris thing as well. But like, is this that level of talent to where you can basically say, like, God, I mean, this team, they might slip up here and there, similar to how Baylor did during the season. But this is a team that's going to go wire to wire. And if you want to win a national championship, you're going to have to go through Texas.
Yeah, when you look at the roster from top to bottom as it's assembled right now, I think
Right.
that you would have to consider Texas to be a team, that sort of a team, a top 5 minimum to start the season. If for no other reason, then it's an unknown. Like, none of these guys have played together. Chris Beard hasn't coached 2/3 of the roster, 75%. Well, more than that, because he's only bringing the one guy, right? So it's like, Chris
But he's
Beard hasn't
coached
coached any of
against,
these
if you
guys.
consider that,
But
he's
yeah,
coached against a
and
number
we
of
talked
players on the
about,
roster. Yeah.
and we talked about that last show where we mentioned, like, he has the experience either coaching against them, knowing the type of players that
Right.
he's bringing in, or he has that previous relationship where he's had his eye on a lot of. There's none of these are an accident, right?
No.
Like, these guys that he's bringing on are for a reason. He has previous relationships with them. He's coached against them or both. And now with Carr being a first team all Big Ten guy last year, for Beard to bring him on now and to play that role of 1 or 1A or however it's going to look on any given night, because again, although I keep calling him a bucket getter because that's what he is, but there's obviously other guys on his team that can score the basketball. So however it's passed around that night, for him to get a Marcus Carr on campus and really solidify this top 3, top 5 team, if you will, is the Final Four for me is like, that's where you would expect a roster this talented to end up, for the same reason you mentioned about Baylor and Gonzaga last year. The cream rose to the top, and I think Texas has that kind of roster. Now, of course, they've obviously never dribbled a basketball on the same court together as a team, so you still got to see it on the floor. You still have to put it all together. And now Beard's done the first part of the job, which was put together what is, like we said, an basically all-star college roster. Now, how do you piece it together and stir the stew up and make sure that nobody's spitting in the stew, that that it's a good stew.
Sure. Absolutely.
How do you make that happen?
Absolutely. And that's the next big test for Beard is the product on the court. And I'm optimistic about what he's going to put out there, because he's a guy that understands Texas, and he knows what, for one, he was a Penders guy. He's a Penders acolyte. He's going to be, that's where the running horns, the original running horns. And, going from Lubbock to where, like, if you're just winning games, people are going to pack the building, but it wasn't a pretty style of basketball, to Austin in the final year of the Irwin Center, where winning's great, obviously. And it's really hard, according to Tom Herman and Steve Sarkisian. But
we could have gone without bringing that up.
God damn it!
But now we're gonna bring it up again later. We're gonna wrap the show with that.
All right, so I was wrong again. We are going to mention Texas football this week. So, all right, we'll get to that later. But, like, he knows that in order to pack the Irwin Center, it's got to be entertaining. It's got to be and you look at these transfers like we're talking about. Can you imagine a recruiting pitch to get a player on campus that consists of, like, we're just going to slow the ball down and play really tight defense? That's how I'm going to make you more attractive to the NBA draft. If you're Marcus Carr or any of these guys that transferred in from good programs, that's not the pitch that you're hearing. I guarantee it. It's, we're going to be a high scoring, fast pace, run the court kind of team. And he's got the horses to do it now. And that's where, and like, that's why I think, obviously we haven't seen the product on the court, but that was another aspect of concern with the hiring of Chris Beard, was like the style of play. And is this going to be something that, like, oh, well, they might win games, but it's just going to be really tough to watch. I think the way that this roster is being built out, the types of players that he's gone out and got, suggests that that's not going to be the case.
Right.
And sometimes you coach, I mean, a lot of it, all the time, good coaches at least, you coach with what you have. And we've seen plenty of coaches over the years try to turn players into something that they're not, for trying to, the square peg, round hole thing for a system, when it should be the other way around. You adjust your system to the players that you have on the roster. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think it's going to be exciting to watch. I mean, the talent alone, but I think it's going to be an entertaining brand of basketball. And I think people are going to want to go to the Irwin Center to watch it, which
Yeah,
says a lot.
and
When's the last time we could say that about a Texas basketball team?
it's been a while. It's been 15 years probably since.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the 16s, when, early to mid 2000s is really when I remember feeling that way last. And
The height of the Rick Barnes era,
yeah, and it's just really, I mean,
which still in itself could have been a little, it wasn't Pinder's running horns ball.
no,
But still,
definitely
it's,
not. But this is going to be an exciting brand of basketball to
yeah.
watch, and they're going to get up and down the floor. And I mean, it's just, when you have these athletes, these are just basketball players. It's this, basically this once in a lifetime opportunity to start from scratch like this. You come into a school and basically start from scratch, and even the players you're inheriting, like a Courtney Ramey is a great basketball player. And you got to campus and your glue was already here.
Yeah.
Your glue guys on the bench already. So
You already
what
got
else
the
do you
junkyard
want?
dog that,
He's already there. You don't need to look for that in the portal. That's why you can go use up roster spots with all these top talented guys, because you got Brock Cunningham on campus already, like the G that he is.
right.
So I mean, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, and I will. I mean, now I'll be. It's almost like now, this is appointment viewing. Texas Longhorns basketball now, with this roster, will be appointment viewing. You're going to want to watch this team play. You're either going to see, like you said, the next real version of the Running Horns, or it's going to be a glorious explosion of not working at all.
Too many big personalities, too many, and that's what we're going to find out, is how do you mix all these new guys together that have never played together before, and how is it going to actually work on the court? And that's what, like last year's team, these are guys that have been together for a while, and there was that cohesion and that development of personalities together and all that. This is really a fascinating experiment, right? It's either going to be like Harlem Globetrotter excitement, or like egos and frustration and a disaster.
Yeah, but it's just, you just look at that roster and it just seems like there's way too much talent. Even if you got a couple of guys that end up coming in and realizing it's not for them. There's so much. You've accrued all of this talent now, and you got a couple of guys coming back that were already here. We've seen Chris Beard coach. There's no doubt that Chris Beard can coach. So that's why the confidence level should, in my opinion, be high, because of what we've already seen. We saw him take a team in Lubbock to new heights. I mean, it's Lubbock, guys. No disrespect to our loyal Red Raider viewers, but I think now you would admit that Chris Beard got Texas Tech to places that they had never been before and might not be back to for a while.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like the expectations should be sky high, because we've already seen what Chris Beard can do as a coach, and with a team of lesser combined talent, and what he can do. this is the greatest experiment. This may be considered the greatest experiment. This is going to be a great story if the Longhorns can find a way to run the table or whatever, and make a run at this thing. It's going to be fantastic to watch. I'm telling you, it's going to be must see viewing, man. Like this is going to be a fun thing to watch. Like you said, because there's going to be guys that they're going to win games not because they're a great team yet, but because they're that talented. They're going to out talent, even on the nights that they should maybe have lost. They're going to win a few of those against teams that are pretty good.
Yeah.
Just because they're going to out talent them, and that's why I feel like the expectations should just be,
through the roof, as they should be. But I do want to say, we're as much as we're discussing the transfers and Beard utilizing the portal and all that. I mean, we've mentioned the players that are on campus. There are some real leaders in there, and that's where these are guys that have been on campus for a while. When you talk about Jones, Febris, Ramey, Cunningham, like these are guys that have been on campus for a while. They're good. We've seen their leadership qualities. They each, they have their own stories, especially Jones. Like I think that is what is pushing me more towards the, like, this is going to be, this is going to be a really, really good team this year. That's going to be entertaining to watch versus the, like, this is going to be just like a glorious disaster. Because I think that leadership group there that Beard is essentially kind of building around is going to keep that, because that's a good group. If you're talking about like a foundation of players that have been on campus to start adding these guys into, I think that's a good group to start with. We're not talking about like, it's not like all the leadership left with this previous team. We talked about Greg Brown's kind of issues last year. Jericho Sims wasn't the most vocal guy. Like there's, Matt Coleman was a great leader. It sucks losing him. But other than that, like there's a good leadership core on this team. And I think that's what's going to keep this thing tight and keep it going.
It's amazing that we got this far and hadn't talked about Jones yet. Like, it's
exactly.
Not even like we made it this far into the show, and that's no, he's a great player, a really great player. But it's like with you're looking at all of these, the talent that's coming to campus, and it was easy for me to forget about Febris, who isn't too bad at putting the ball in the basket himself when he's right, and he's a really good player. There's going to be he's working in, and I bet he's planning for attrition. Somebody, it's not going to work for somebody, and nothing is going to stop moving. Like it just, if that happens, nothing will stop moving because there's still so much talent on campus right now.
Well,
like it's.
And that's the nature of like modern college sports. And that's, a bigger, different conversation. But like, if there's attrition, that means that the player in front of them has played well enough to really solidify into that role.
Yep.
And so, it's like with the, you talk about like quarterback competitions and stuff like that. If a quarterback transfers off a camp at backup, that means that the starting guy's playing well enough that the backup sees that there's not going to be a path to playing there. It's the two sides of the coin. And that's where I think you're absolutely right. Like there's going to be some attrition from this team. Maybe, I mean, maybe these guys see how stacked this crew is and they go, let's go win a trophy.
Yeah. Why would
we'll
you
sort it out later?
Like, yeah, exactly. Like find a way. And I think that's going to be that's sort of just going to be what they do. I think you have to know that going in. And I think Beard has had that conversation with every single one of these guys. Like, hey, like you might have to put your ego aside at times. There's going to be nights where you don't touch the ball a lot.
Right.
You might not start anymore. All of this stuff. Check. He's had these conversations with them. And I feel like you would have to be on board with that, even though, in your mind, you're going to be the guy that's going to start and you're never going to be the one that's going to be out of, on the outside looking in. And that's where the attrition comes in. But it's just, how can you not look at this and say, wow, this is something that will compete for a Final Four. Like it's, and then let's if you want to move on now let's talk about the recruiting work that he's done, not
Yes,
only in
absolutely.
terms of the transfer portal, but now, like we were saying earlier, within 5 minutes of Carr giving his commitment to the Longhorns, Arterio Morris committed, which, he has a case along with somebody we're going to mention in a second to be the top player in that class. He's committed to Chris Beard in the 2022 class. In addition to that, he's also the Horns are also the favorite to land his teammate who's going to be his teammate upcoming this year, who's Keontae George, who also has a claim, depending on which recruiting service you look at, to be the top rated recruit in the 2022 class. Morris commits today. George is, it seems to me like so far, it seems like they're a package deal, and which is when you have two players of that caliber, they're very rarely, oh yeah, we're gonna both go to the same school, and that's what it seems like is gonna happen, man. Like so Beard is making all of these relationships. I read something earlier that Morris just played in a tournament, and Beard was the only head coach that was at the last game he played of the tournament. And it's like those are the details that Chris Beard is paying attention to, and in addition to working the transfer portal so well, he's got this guy in Morris that's gonna, he's the first commit in the class, but he could, if that's your guy, like a lot of schools will be like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll take him, moving on, have a good one,
Yeah, I mean,
but there's more to come.
Isn't it kind of amazing to be discussing the Morris commitment in this context, where like it's, this is like on the level, I mean, maybe, I guess, we talk about the Greg Brown commitment. You talk about Mo Bamba. You talk about these like big recruits that have committed to Texas over the years, where it's like, there it is. There's our one. This is a guy that's gonna be like a one and done. Got him. And Morris commits, and his commitment news is like overshadowed. I feel like it's not getting the attention of the Marcus Carr commitment. And then it's the attitude of like, okay, well that's that's great that Morris committed, but like Keontae George is now we're going even more.
Yeah.
Like, what a different feeling. Like, it's wild.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that's
where this program is. After
fish.
losing to Abilene Christian in the tournament, that's where this program is.
It's impressive to look at it and to think about and to see how far it's come in such a short amount of time. It's just to be in that conversation. It feels it's weird.
4 months ago.
I don't want to say awkward, but it feels like we shouldn't be having this conversation about the Texas basketball program. But like you said, here we are, and there's one on board for 2022, and by all accounts,
he's not
could
done
be another
yet.
one on the way. And again, a lot of these players that are transferring in are older players. Like, that's the thing. So there's going to be more roster spots here coming up, and Beard knows that. He's going for it. Like, why not? You're going for it this year. If however you end up, because feeling like he'll do well in the tournament and this team will play well, and then you're opening up a brand new arena the next year, and you're going to bring in these guys, and you're going to bring in two guys that could both be considered the top guy in their recruiting class, and I guess the pitch right there, guys. Let's go. Come down here to Austin. Open this arena in 2022 with me. Let's make this happen. Like, we're gonna do this. And
it's not even taking into account what Beard's going to be able to do in the transfer portal after this season.
Exactly.
And that's where he's got the pulse of the modern college basketball world right now. Like, he's killing it in the portal. He's getting recruits for the following class. And then he goes, oh, well, let me see how next season's roster is going to shake out. Okay, now I'll go get this player to fill these gaps in the roster, and let's run it back again. It's amazing what he's doing. It's really incredible. And it's gonna be, It's gonna be fun to preview this team. It's gonna be fun to watch this team, and yeah, God, get George in the mix, and we'll be talking a lot of running horns for quite a while to come, I think.
Yeah.
So,
if we're not, something really bad happens.
well, I think even then,
Like,
that might
yeah,
might be worth discussing anyway if it's going
that's
bad,
true.
because it'll be going
Yeah.
bad so terribly that it would have to be
Yeah.
discussed. But I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Let's move on here. Let's get into some La Zona Verde. Let's talk some Austin FC. We'll get back to the horns here in a little bit, but let's get into Austin FC. It was kind of a down week, if you want to call it that, on the Austin FC front. Did we discuss Musa Jite signing the last show? Was that?
Yeah, we did. We talked about him a little bit, and we were disappointed because I think at that point we did know that he wasn't going to get to have any run against Tigres on Tuesday. But yeah, the next night, the first 99 in Austin FC history
Yeah.
coming through. I love it. Love every bit about that. And
Yep.
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he can get on, because there's a nice stretch of games here where they're going to need some firepower, and hopefully GT can get all the paperwork sorted and get into the club. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the international friendly the other night against Tigres.
Yeah, we were there. We were in attendance.
Yes.
It was a great atmosphere. It was it's an international friendly. It's against a team from Mexico coming up, one of the most successful clubs. Kind of say in jest, not so much in jest. Like, it's, the second best club in the world right now in Tigres. They lost in the Club World Cup final to Bayern Munich. They were the first, I believe, the first CONCACAF Champions League winner club basically to ever make it to the final of the Club World Cup. So they already reached that accomplishment, and then you lose in the final to Bayern Munich. There's no shame in that at that point. No. It's so a very successful club. They come up to Austin for a friendly. Obviously, they weren't full strength. Neither was Austin FC. Tigres go up 1-0. Rodney Redes scores his first goal in real action for Austin FC, which is a great goal, and he was active all night. He's a guy that we've been a little critical of, throughout this season, just because he's kind of a raw player, and but the goal was fantastic. And then things there was one of those sequences of events that kind of flipped the game on its head a little bit. And I forget what minute it was, but Manny Perez takes the ball into the box. He gets essentially shoved from behind. We had the perfect vantage point for it, and the replay suggested the same thing. He gets shoved from behind in the box. No penalty call. There's no VAR in use. Austin FC's rightfully livid about the non-call. And in the midst of frustration, Tigres come back down and score, what amounted to being the winning goal, and go up 2-1 on a goal that also looked to be offside. And so no VAR to overturn that. So you had the sequence of events. It could have been 2-1 Austin. Instead, it's 2-1 Tigres, and they put the icing on the cake a bit later. But it's a friendly against a really talented club that had a lot of support. And what were some of the takeaways for you from, we didn't see a lot of the starters, the typical first 11 players that we see in league play. So what did you take away from the friendly against Tigres?
Redis playing the full 90 for me was a big deal.
Yeah.
For him to not come off at all and play pretty well. We were still, you were talking about that false nine formation, and sort of not like Gite is going to come in and maybe eliminate the need to play with that specific sort of a lineup, but to have that Redis just, he hadn't lived up to it, I guess, but he really looked good against Tigres and played the full 90 minutes. I was really, really pleased with that. And then Owen Wolf coming on, the teenager coming on at halftime and putting in some quality work. The youth academy prospect for Austin FC, and also happens to be the son of the manager, Josh Wolf. But there's no, he looked like he belonged, and it was impressive to see him in the flow of the game. And so those were the two things for me, being able to see Redis put in a full 90 and really have it play his best match, friendly or not.
Yeah,
For
I
me,
think
it
so.
was his best match. It was his best match in the Verde and Black. And then to see the youth of Owen Wolf come on and play so well, play under such poise, it was very impressive to see. So what about you? What were you? Do you have any takeaways from the match on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think Wolf was great. I mean, 16 years old, and to go into that kind of environment against a team of that caliber, even if
Yeah.
it is, we're talking, some reserves and, bench guys sprinkled in for Tigres, just he looked composed. He looked like he belonged. And that's what at
Yep.
16, I mean, God, could you imagine? Like that was, really fantastic from him. I thought Tarbell was good in goal. I think he was okay. I don't want to say like he's not going to be
Right.
pushing Stuver for the starting job anytime soon. I think you can tell where the difference between him and Stuver is, but he's just I mean, hopefully, God forbid something happens to Stuver and he has to miss time. But this is when you talk about rotation, I think he's totally fine as a rotation keeper. I think to come in and be your second choice I think that's where he's at.
You've got to have guys like that on your roster.
Yeah.
It's not just about putting guys on your roster that are going to be the first team guys. You're starting 11 all the time. And goalkeeper is often forgotten, and especially now in Austin, when there hasn't been a question all season long of who the man was.
Right.
And he should be. He should be he's been the best. He's led the league in saves so far, I believe. He's been right at the top all season long, and he's been the best keeper in the league by far. I feel like he should be an all-star this year.
I think
There's
he
a lot
will.
of good keepers,
I
but
think so.
I think he should be. He's in that conversation no matter what. But you got to have those rotational guys, like you said. And Stuber might need a night off here and there. He might catch a nick and have to miss a game. And I feel like Tarbell could fill that role if you need him to, and not totally, lay an egg.
Yeah.
Some of the goals against him today, I mean, it was a one-on-one. I mean, today on Tuesday, there was basically what amounted to a one-on-one, and then it wasn't. There were some defensive lapses
I think
later
it was
in
that
the
third
match
goal that nobody would have stopped. It was the one that
No.
their striker just curled it into that corner, and like nobody's stopping that.
It wasn't happening. But again, like, it's serviceable. Made some nice plays. Didn't play scared. He's definitely not a timid player, and that you can't. And that to me just tells me, okay, if he's got to fill in a pinch, he'll step up and play, and he'll be fine. So, but yeah, and we were talking about Gite coming on, being able to play once we come out of this break here, and because Seattle's coming to town. That's right around the corner.
Yeah, this week, Thursday, I think, right?
The 20, Thursday. So then you have wherever's Vancouver's playing these days, heading up there, and then Colorado Rapids, and the Houston Dynamo, back to back at Q2 Stadium, and then heading up to
Frisco
to play
FC Dallas of Frisco Metroplex FC.
Yeah, FC Park at Comerica. No, okay. Well, anyways, that's that. Yeah, so that would be nice to have a little firepower, a little added firepower for the stretch coming up, because while those Austin FC should look to and expect to get quite a few points out of this 5-match run, it would be nice to have a little added firepower, some fresh feet, and get him in there. So hopefully GTA's paperwork can get figured out.
Yep, and we're still in the transfer window as well. I know that Mackenzie Gaines, he got a little bit of time against Tigres. He's on trial with the club, essentially a tryout type thing, and we'll see if he ends up signing. He's a guy that spent some time in Germany and was with the U.S. U17. U21 setup for a little bit. So a player that can play. We'll see if he ends up getting signed permanently, and as well as another designated player spot. I think that there's still another big money signing left in this club during this transfer window, and Yeah. So there's a chance here to kind of add some firepower, and for a club that has as many injuries as it has at the moment would definitely
Yep.
help. So, well, let's get back to the Horns for just a minute. We mentioned the Sluggin Horns, the end of the run in Omaha. The MLB draft was this past week. We won't go into too much detail. We'll kind of go down the quick list here, but mostly I just want to have a quick discussion about who you think can come back from this. So let's just hit this off right here. We had Ty Madden go in the first round. He's gone, obviously.
Yeah.
I know we kind of talked about like he slipped a little further than we thought he would, where he ended up getting drafted by Detroit, but still it was still a first round pick. Mike Antico, another guy that won't be back, but he went 8th round to the Cardinals. Cole Quintanilla, 9th round to the Washington Nationals. And this is where it gets interesting. So we had Ivan Melendez go to Miami in the 16th round. I think we both agree that Melendez will be back.
Yeah, I feel like he's got a little bit more time on campus. I don't think he'll go to Miami.
Yeah, I agree. I think he can definitely improve his draft stock, or at least, just improve his profile by coming back to Texas for another season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's because I think if he went pro, he could develop that. Like, I think he's that kind of player that he could figure this out. But I think doing it on campus, because knowing that, okay, I think this is about where he would be like this might be his floor. He may drop a little bit, but I mean, like, if he could push himself up into like that 10th, 11th round, even, I don't know that he's ever going to be like a second round player.
Right.
I don't know about that, but he's a legitimate prospect to be drafted whenever it is that he finishes, obviously, but whenever, even next year, even if he doesn't have a super great year, like, I feel like he's the type of, he already has that profile like you were talking about, but working on that at Texas and seeing if he could, I think he can do better than the 16th round, but I think he's coming back, but and you do too. So what about Kubicek? Kubicek drafted by the Mets in the 18th round.
I think Kubicek comes back. I think that's another player that could boost their stock. Yeah, I think Kubicek comes back.
I agree.
Cam Williams, he's gone. He went. I think
Yep.
his eligibility's up and going to KC in the 19th round. And we'll get to the replacement for Cam Williams here in just a second. But the last player drafted was Zach Zubia. Went to the Marlins in the 20th round. He could come back, but I think, again, we're both on the same page here about whether or not he actually does. Like, we talk about Melendez being able to improve his stock. Do you think Zach Zubia can improve his stock coming back another year, or do you think he's essentially reached his peak of what he can do in the college game?
That's how I feel about Zubia right now. I don't know that he gains a lot by coming back. I think Melendez will, want to put on a glove a little bit more and maybe place and fill in that first base role a little bit. So I think that they're starting with the writing on the wall there, and also kind of thinking like, man, this is my shot. Let me get a fresh start. Let me
Get paid.
I just think that,
yeah,
let me get paid. Like, and I think he'll take that opportunity and sign with Miami. And, he's one of those guys. We could be talking about Zubia here in a few years, like making an impact at the major league level. If he's a good player. I mean, he's
a
really good player. He's just not a guy that right now is like jumps off the page like, oh, this is an all-star. But he does. You've seen it, and you saw it on Burst on the 40 Acres where he looks like the type of guy. Oh yeah, Zubia's coming up. That's a guy that teams would pitch around sometimes. It's just
right.
I just think this is the right time for him to go pro, and I think he will.
Well, let's talk about, so real quick, we'll get into the other news. So that was the draft results, but Tristan Stevens was a guy that was a lot of people thought would get drafted, but didn't. And, I mean, given that, I guess it's not too much of a surprise, but he's announced his return for next season back to Texas. So we look at, obviously losing Ty Madden hurts, but you look at how, Witt pitched this season. We'll see what happens with Kubicek, but basically, and I think we agree, Kubicek will probably come back. So you're talking about Witt, Hansen, Stevens, and Kubicek as kind of your 4 guys that you can roll with and see how your Friday,
Wow.
Saturday, Sunday lineup works out. So I don't think there's going to be any drop off from the team that led the Big 12 or led the Division 1 baseball and lowest ERA. And it's this is going to be another really well pitched staff here.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what you sort of expect, right? That's where a program like Texas should be. If you lose a guy like who, and I'm like, they're disappointed they didn't take him when they had the opportunity to. When you lose a guy like that, that's a program changer. You should be able to look at your roster the next year and be like, hey, it sucks, but we've got bang, bang, bang. We've got these guys ready to step up. Any one of these guys could be an ace.
Yeah.
Any one of those guys could pitch on Fridays. Any one
Right.
of them. Any one of them could end up being that guy. I mean, I think we were talking the other night. I think we agree that for us, Witt's stuff is just so electric. Like Witt, for me, maybe at least for me, it's his to lose. I know he's young, but Witt's just stuff. Like I feel like he's a potential Friday night guy, but
yeah, but it's crazy.
yeah,
We completely neglected to even mention Pete Hansen in that, and that's where we start thinking about that. Like,
yeah.
God, I mean, with the experience, maybe you go Pete Hansen Friday night and Witt's your Saturday guy, and then you let Stevens and Kubicek, whoever rises to the top, as your Sunday guy, and then you've got
Either
one of those
way,
guys that's going to be
yeah.
essentially like a Tuesday night starter or somebody that can come in for relief. I mean, like the pitching staff is stacked.
Yeah, and that would be the argument, I guess, against Kubicek maybe returning, is because it's when you look at it, and even though he was drafted, you look at that and it's like something goes south. He's the odd man out now. He went from being drafted to not even pitching on the weekend, and it's like you take that. Do you take?
I have a hard
that
time thinking
chance?
that'll be the case, though. Honestly, I think he's going to improve, and that's where that's why I think he'll be back, because I think he has a lot of room to improve, and I think he will improve. Yeah, I hear you though. It's like, okay, you got drafted, but you are going to come back and maybe not even be in the starting weekend rotation. Like, you don't come back from being drafted to be like a Tuesday night starter, right?
Right. I mean, you could, but and that could be the thing. And there's so much that will happen leading up to
Right.
the start of the baseball season. We're still a long way away. So like any number of things could happen, but I don't know. That does intrigue me a little bit, but I think you and I both said that he'd be back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I think so.
so in terms of we've had a little bit of transfer news with the baseball team in terms of incoming players. Skylar Messenger, third baseman from Kansas, second team All Big 12 third baseman, is transferred into Texas. There's your Cam Williams replacement right there. So,
Boom.
if Melendez takes over the first base role, Messenger takes that third base, your infield set. Pretty easy job there for David Pierce getting the infield lineup going. But Kimball Schuessler, catcher from A&M, is transferring in, and he's it's just depth. He's Ardoin's not losing that job, and losing DJ Petrinsky feels like he's been on campus for a decade. And that's where Schuessler's going to take that role. So, a player with some experience. Yeah. So they're David Pierce keeping this roster cruising along. So
it's what you'd expect from a guy that has shown that he has what it takes as a coach to get that team to Omaha, to fight through adversity throughout the year and to find ways just to put guys into positions to be successful. And we've talked about this before. He wasn't the first or second or maybe even third choice by that athletic department at the time to be the head coach at Texas, but he was the right one. And he's shown that so far. It's in good hands. The program's in great hands now. And it's the train ain't slowing down. It's look for the Sluggin Horns to be in that conversation again next year, because this is no longer ever going to be, I don't feel like a rebuild type of a
Oh, no, no,
program.
no. We're beyond that. Yeah.
This is a reload situation. And when you talk about this pitching staff coming back, that's exactly what it is. It's just, nah, we're not, and it's not even reload. These are guys that are already here. Just bringing guys back that are like this quality. Oh man. Again, how do you not get excited about this? Having these types of conversations, like, man, you got 4 really good pitchers. Somebody's gonna have to pitch on Tuesday. Like,
Oh,
what a
real
problem
shame.
to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you hate to see it, right? So it's and again, let's move on now. We weren't going to talk football, but we are now, because we heard the phrase, Kerry. We heard it. Steve Sarkisian uttered the words, "Winning is hard."
Yeah.
Kerry, this
Yeah. Is this a red flag for you?
Oh gosh, it's something. It's not good.
I think there was also the like fairy dust type of comment as well. Like, oh, you can't just like put like magic dust or something to like fix it overnight kind of thing. I think he hit like 2 of the Tom Herman bingo spots at Big 12 Media Days, which,
All right, so let me ask you this then.
It's just like, it's PTSD.
Is that coming from the athletic department? Like when you're the coach, when you get hired on and you get asked like a question like that, are you contractually obligated to say, well, you can't just sprinkle some fairy dust on it and fix the problem? Like, do you have to say winning is hard?
No, if it was something from the athletic department, it would involve much more like sponsorship type stuff. It'd be like, you can't just go and get LASIK from Sharp Vision and, fix everything, right? It would be something like some kind of like sponsorship worked in there. Like, you can't just sprinkle Taco Bell gong on it and like fix everything.
Do you remember that No Fear brand of t-shirts?
Of course. Yeah.
So they had those catchy slogans on the back, right? Well, like the No Fear shirt would say "Winning is hard, the rest is just details." It would be something like that. Like that would be one of those. It's like the No Fear slogan of Texas football coaches.
I think all of our viewers that are No Fear collectors and diehards would cringe at that being on the back of a shirt saying "Winning is hard." That goes against that's the antithesis of the ethos of No Fear brand.
That's a fair point. Yeah. Oh God. Sorry for all you No Fear aficionados out there. I had a bunch of that stuff.
That's man. That was Maybe I'll tweet at Chris Del Conte and see if we can get a Texas and No Fear collaboration. All the stuff from the 90s is coming back anyway. We might as well.
Why not? Let's do it.
Instead of now that Nike is taking care of Oregon, maybe Umbro can become the Texas apparel provider, and we can bring back the old Umbro shorts in a burnt orange shade, and socks and the whole thing.
Those a pair of green Umbros with the burnt orange, that green and orange would go well. You got the hat on today. I mean, the green and the orange. See, I mean, that's and now so we got No Fear and Umbro. Anything else from the 90s we want to bring on board?
No, I don't think so.
Good?
I don't think
LL
so.
Cool J, can we bring him to do something like that's like
Longhorn City Limits?
All right, there we go. LL can come out to Longhorn City Limits then. We'll do it.
Longhorns love Cool J.
Very nice. Very good. Let's end on that. We're not getting any higher than that today, man.
No, we're not. I guess I'm glad we did mention the Sarkisian winning is hard thing, so we have this like saved. It's preserved now to where down the road, if we need to reference it, say, see,
we told you.
We knew. You should have listened.
Yeah.
Now, if we see him with the sledgehammer trying to like knock out locker rooms, the whole thing, then it's going to time is a flat circle. Yeah. So you
Drop that
gong,
sledgehammer.
Taco Bell, brought to you by Taco
Gong.
Bell, gong. That's what the that's what they should do.
We gotta-
All right, before we get completely off the rails here, that's what they should do on like the Jumbotron. Like whenever they do the like Taco Bell ad, is show that clip of Tom Herman with the sledgehammer, and then just
Yeah.
dub in the Taco Bell gong as it like rattles off, and have like some
we gotta
tacos
we
fly
gotta
out
figure
or
that
something.
out. That'd be great. That'd be great. Let's make that happen. At Chris Del Conte on Twitter. There you go. He
Not
responds well to fans.
CDC. That's the Centers for Disease Control. So if you're tweeting, don't bother them. They're busy.
Yeah, don't. They
So-
have a lot on their plates right now. Do not bother them about Taco Bell sound overs for Tom Herman gifts. Okay, we don't need it. At Chris
Oh.
Del Conte, everybody tweet at him. Let him know.
All right. I think that's a wrap.
Let's do it. Wrap
Let's
it
call
up.
it there.
Yeah.
I think
Longhorns
my-
love Cool James. There it is.
before I ruin any more of my Saturday thinking about Tom Herman throwing sledgehammers around at anything. So, all right, it's been fun. This has been a good one.
Yeah, it has
Let's
been.
we'll try to do it again next week. Let's go. I know I
Yeah.
got a little bit of travel next weekend, but yeah, we'll get it going again
This
next
is
week, man.
two. If we do it once more, that's called a winning streak.
Yes,
it
it
has
is.
happened before, and we will do it again. So thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you next time.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again.
We'll go.
ATX representing. Fatal, baby.
Rolling on 6 on a Saturday.